Welcome to the Gary Null Show, a program designed to enhance mental, physical, and spiritual well-being through science and the wisdom of the ages. Let us take you on a journey of empowerment. Sit back, relax, and get ready to change your life for good.
So a lot of people give us what they think is love, but it's not. It's conditional response. So understand we are born perfect. You cannot improve the human spirit. You can't improve on perfection. That's like saying, I'm as equal to the creator of the universe. No, you're not. That's your stupid little ego. Understand something. Love is perfection. We are born with perfection. But our society, our conditioning, our limitation, our biases, our fears, then keep that from being accessed. So the energy that we put is put into our conditioned response.
During our child development periods, especially from in fetal growth from the last half of pregnancy through the first 6 years of our lives, we learn from our parents and our family or community the characteristics of what life is all about. We download their beliefs and their behaviors into our life and then try to run our life based on those experiences. So if we come from a situation where the concept of love is not really applied to the child or given to the child in its fullest understanding, then the child can only pick up the pieces through its developmental programming of what that love represents and then search for those pieces. And therefore, we really have a narrow focus of what we're looking for in love, especially if we have a little checklist of these are the things that I must find and then I will know I'm in love, rather than having a much fuller expansion. Yet the problem is our quest is limited by our programming. So whatever your parents found represented love is what you're looking for in love, even though there's probably a much grander scheme that we really want. We will go to fulfill the program of our beliefs and our programming that we acquired as children.
Everyone has compassion, like to their own kin, to those they identify in their own circle of concern. And of course, people should have compassion for themselves. Well, actually, some people don't, but everyone tends to. But therefore, the question becomes, how do you enlarge that circle of compassion to adopt people who are not your kin to be in your circle of compassion? And this is something that requires cultivation, you could say. You know, people can go expand and include the team, they can include the tribe, they can include the town, and maybe the nation, in certain times and moments. But then it doesn't last, And so how do you develop an attitude that all beings are, in a sense, members equally deserving of your compassion as your own child would, And to really have that fully expressed, you have to become enlightened, actually, because you have to realize your interrelatedness with all beings in a certain deep way, and actually even with every animal. The idea that animals are not have no soul, or they're not living beings, they're just some sort of material mechanism, is rejected in the compassion tradition in Buddhism. And we do have methods of doing that, and the basic gist of the method is to see through one's sense of separateness from the world and deepen one's sense of connectedness to the world, and then the suffering of others becomes as intolerable as one's own suffering is the ideal.
Ask yourself, can you get your mind in a position to understand that we are a physical being living through a spiritual energy? Because we're born with energy. It is energy that is the basis of life. When you're dead, the only thing missing is your energy.
Intimacy with one's deepest nature, to my mind, is the intimacy of the soul. Who are we? How do we identify and integrate with the intimacy of our soul? What are the qualities? We know that the qualities are love and peace, strength, And that intimate relationship with our true self is how then we can have the intimate relationship with others.
What makes it take so long for us to learn patience, to love ourselves authentically?
Because we weren't accepted early in life as being a person that was looked upon as someone of love. If you're not looked upon as a loving being, then frequently you'll go through much of your life trying to compensate, trying to prove you are, or being just the opposite, proving that you're not going to be loved because you never got love. So if you were given pain, you're going to give pain.
During our development, we start to acquire patterns of behavior and programs that reflect the environment that we're in. So if I grew up in a family, let's say, where there was an abusive parent, and every day I started receiving this abuse, whether it's verbal or physical, I begin to acquire a program expecting this kind of activity every day. It's like a habit. So every day I'm looking forward to feeding this habit through my abusive parent. And so why this becomes important as we get older and we still have a habit of looking for this in our life, if we meet up with other people, we would expect them to fulfill and play their part in the habit that we acquired. So that if I was abused by my parents when I was a child and now I'm getting older, then I'm looking to maintain this abusive relationship in my life. So therefore, even if my partner isn't willing to be that abusive, I will actually seek it in order to create a fulfillment of a habit. It's an urge to actually end up experiencing what you're used to experiencing. So if you come from that kind of unfortunate background, you will actually try to create a future that will have the same emotional and physiological characteristics with it and seek abuse.
Men have a lot of difficulty communicating their feelings and their needs in so many different ways, as well as about love or sex with their partner. Our culture has not been one that's just really supported men expressing what they feel. And so often the problem is men don't even know what they feel. And so how can they express it if they don't know? So we have a very broad cultural problem going on with how we bring up our boys, because that's what prepares them to be able to have intimacy or not be able to have intimacy. If they brought up not to know what they're feeling, and especially not to express it if they do know it, how could they begin to express it with their partners? How could they show what they need? If we're supposed to be tough all the time, if we're supposed to always be independent, how could we even say, I need something? So we have to let that become able or permissible to us, even to feel such feelings, then to be able to show them and think we aren't losing our masculinity because we're showing our feelings and expressing our needs. So we have a major problem that goes underneath this whole situation with a man with his mate. It's a whole part of how we've developed. And a lot of times we have to do a lot of work on ourselves to be able to get past those kind of conditionings that we had as little kids, and to learn that it's okay to have softer feelings. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay, therefore, to show that I have a need or I have a desire. And unless that part's dealt with, it's going to be hard for that man to communicate that with his mate.
There was a research study that says that people who cry live longer than people who don't cry. That's a nice little advantage. There's another research study that says the biochemistry of tears is different according to what kind of tears they are. If there's a tear falling that's designed to clean debris from your eyes, that has a different biochemical makeup than an emotionally based tear. And an emotionally based tear actually serves to reduce the level of cortisol, which is the stress hormone in the body. So merely by crying emotional tears, I'm reducing my stress level. You know, most people are so uncomfortable, but I'll tell you, as a psychologist, I love it when people cry, because I know at that point they've nailed it. They've hit exactly what they needed to feel, and when this is the point of expression and release, and there's healing taking place right before my eyes, because they're letting that go, and we will not have to go back to that point, because they've made peace with that. They've flushed it. It's literally a flushing, a cleansing, a catharsis is the Greek word. And so let's never ever run away from tears. And for the men out there, Keep in mind that you have the same tear ducts that a woman has, and you have all the same emotions. It's just that for men, we were basically taught that there's pleasant things like humor, expressing of love emotions, which are still limited, and then there's anger. And so if you feel frightened, you cover it up with anger. If you're humiliated, you cover it up with anger. If you feel rejected, you cover it up with anger. If you feel insulted, you cover it up with anger. Everything's about anger because we weren't taught as men that we can experience and express the full gamut of human emotions. However, a fully functioning human is not unlike a brand new car where all the parts work. How do you know a human is fully functioning? Because he or she can have a belly laugh. He or she can feel sad and cry. He or she has the capacity to feel guilt when it's appropriate. He or she can feel joy, can see a baby and face lights up, and can have compassion for an elderly person. That's a fully functioning human. It's not one who's so self-protective because there's no investment anywhere. That's not a fully functioning person.
What is the difference between liking and loving?
Well, generally to the degree that we find that we want someone in our lives to share all that we are as far as love, versus liking someone that we like them, as a human being, we like what they are, we like what we can do, but it's a friendship. It is not that deep intimacy. See, we like to think of sex as intimate. I don't. I think of love as intimate. Because when you're truly intimate with someone, you're completely vulnerable. There is no defense mechanism. There's simply you being as open and honest and giving as, well, you are a river of positive energy to whoever is there to manifest it.
But can you share that with sex?
Yes, you can. And in fact, when you have someone that you are sharing your authentic love with, and you're also having a wonderful sexual relationship, what you'll find is that the love that you share intensifies the physical experience of the sex. Whereas if you have sex without the love, it generally passes very quickly, no matter how exciting it might have been. It's what I call junk food sex. All right? So you got healthy food sex and junk food sex. Candy cotton sex is, ooh, look at that sexy, ooh, I'd like to have sex. Okay, and have too much of it and your brain rots and your teeth rot, all right?
You want the organic sex, Gary.
Organic sex, gourmet sex.
Intimacy is vulnerability. When we have intimacy with another, we are our true selves, and yet we are very vulnerable. In fact, vulnerability is strength. And it is so essential when we open ourselves to another and commit to another, that we also have that our own identity. We don't lose our own identity through this intimacy.
People have this idealistic view of love as everlasting love. People fall in love. It's powerful. It's very strong. Particularly in the beginning, they talk in these high terms about love. But in truth, love that's only started is not powerful. It's not strong. It's a baby. I think of a relationship when two people get together, before they have a physical baby, if they decide to have a baby, they give birth to another entity called relationship. And like any baby, it needs attention, nourishment, nurturing. Unless it's nurtured and taken care of, the baby will die. The same with the relationship.
In a relationship between two people who love each other, is unconditional love the ultimate glue, even if sex, passion, and so on are not always present?
Here's the problem. Most people get physically excited when they see each other, if there's an attraction, if there's a chemistry, right? And that's good. There's nothing at all wrong with that. But then if you base your relationship upon your attraction and not upon what you're able to manifest, and you have to be vulnerable to manifest your love. If a person has come from pain, if a person has come from betrayal by someone, the likelihood is they're going to be less likely to open themselves up and say, I'm a vulnerable person. You can't hurt me because I'm vulnerable. Remember, you can only hurt someone when they're not vulnerable.
Wow.
Remember, when you encase yourself in fear, And with that pain, you restrict and constrict energy. Love expands, love flows.
We come into this world with a purpose. We come to climb the ladder of ourselves, to become the best we can become. And one of the most challenging and the highest aspect of this climb is being loving, is learning how to love. There are different forms of love. Some are easier to execute, some are easier to practice than others. For example, there is a love of a parent. That's relatively easy. If a person is not mentally ill, he or she loves her child. There is a love for your pet. There is love of a student for the teacher. There is love of a teacher for the student. And then there is romantic love, and that gets a little bit more complicated. Because there is not only great affection for a person that you love, not only great desire to enhance a person's well-being, but also the desire to merge with the person in physicality of the relationship.
So just imagine that you are a person that flows. And how often are we around people and they just seem to flow? They're effortless to be around. And you can always tell a person that is in that position of they're happy with themselves because they know that love is the core of their being, because they're easy to be with. You know, they're not harsh and judgmental, they're not demeaning, they're not demanding. And remember what love isn't. Love isn't all those other things. I mean, if you're in love, you're not going to be demeaning anyone. You're not going to be putting them down. You're not trying to use them, abuse them. You're going to be looking to share the best that you can with someone else who shares the best that they are. That means that, let's say, if your sex isn't what it once was, and most people's sex isn't, because there's an excitement at one level, and then it's like, I don't care how much you like a meal, at a certain point of eating it every day, it's not going to be the same. So let's say that you're not as creative or you're not as passionate as you once were. Love never loses its passion. Love is always the flame that burns the hottest. And that's why people can be together 20, 30, 50 years, and as long as it's based upon love, then that love is inseparable. That is eternal.
So then there's different ways to express or manifest the love. You can feel it and you could express it in different ways.
Yes, you can, but be aware of what love isn't. Remember, if you grew up and your parents believe that you need hard love, and you've heard that term, you know, well, it's for your best interest. Almost always it's not, all right? You have a parent who maybe was taught the wrong way. So if they didn't get unconditional love, they had to first perform something to get that love. Oh, you got straight A's? My lovely daughter. You got C's? What's wrong with you? You get a D? Who's your mother? All right? Who's your father? I can't be your father. You got a D. And suddenly kids today have to compete just for attention, let alone affection. And frequently people, they misconceive unconditional love for what you give someone. You know, and so let's say you got a gift or you got a scholarship or you got a car and someone says, oh, I'm so happy. You don't have to give anything except the energy to share it, and you can feel it. Remember, when you release love, it's palpable. You can feel it. And I'll tell you something else about that. How often have you said, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. I can feel it. Something's wrong, right? You know when something's wrong. You feel it. You also feel that sense of joy when you look at someone and, wow, there is no barrier, there is no separation, there is just full flow of energy, and that comes into you and you cycle it and you give it back and it comes in. It's an exchange of the best energy in the universe. Unconditional love heals everything.
Unconditional love is something that comes from your heart, and love is an energy that literally comes from the heart chakra or the heart energy center here, that comes as a result of the loving kindness you can show yourself and others. And it's an energy that you develop. Love is the essence of mental health. It's the essence of healing. It's the essence of everything. And one can develop love and unconditional love through the power of meditation, through the power of good acts, through the power of feeling this energy as it flows through the body. When I do energy healing on people, I call on the power of love to flow through me to have it do the healing. And it's that healing force of love that has the power to change everything.
What is it with our society that they would rather live in marriages that consist of lies than just being honest? Example, cheating as opposed to an open marriage.
And there's another alternative. First, I don't believe anyone should be in a relationship that you can't honor. I believe that if someone is sharing their trust with you, to denigrate that trust is to show that you're not sharing any love at all. Because once again, love doesn't lie. Love doesn't deceive. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't steal.
The ability to hold on to love during conflict is an important responsibility. And what it really represents is that rather than being engaged in automatic responses and being reactionary in an environment, it actually is an opportunity to stop and consider the full spectrum of what is going on, and then operate from that conscious level rather than from the gut reaction level.
One of the things that I love to share with my couples is that you will never win an argument with your spouse, because every time you win, you lose. It's like your right arm fighting your left arm. How do you win? It's all you. It's all part of your body. There is no winner. Think that you just pulled one over on your spouse, and guess what really happens? It costs you. It hurts her. And you know what happens when she feels wounded? She withdraws from you. How is that a victory?
So when you're authentically in love, you're loving the person for who they are. But if you then take advantage of that and say, okay, I've got this person, but I have all these urges, I'm going over here and have an affair, I'm willing to bet that right now, today, if you went to every basketball game, football game, baseball game, hockey game, soccer game by professional league sports, you walk outside of the door and you'll see dozens to hundreds of individuals willing to have sex with their superstars. And it takes a great deal of character for a person who's in a relationship to say, sorry, I don't need this. You know, I have someone that I have a relationship with, and that relationship is sacred. Now, if you can't be in that relationship, a sacred relationship, and have that sacred sexuality, then don't be in a relationship. Then you walk out and say, hey, I like this, you know. But you can't have it both ways, and you shouldn't.
One of the things that we've found in our work as far as the study of long-term relationships and successful marriages is that they don't cheat on their spouses. They really stay committed, they stay faithful because they care so much about each other and the respect. Because when you see the betrayals that you see in some of the public figures in today's modern politics, when you see the betrayal, you have 3 strikes against the family, and it's usually the wife that ends up being the loser in this case when you have the betrayal. First, they have the ultimate betrayal and the breaking of the trust. Secondly, they have the humiliation that the wife has to stand there next to her husband in public, supporting them as they go through this while they're in shock. And usually there's a family involved that the wife has to pick the pieces up for. So there are 3 factors involved in these very public scandals. And we usually see the news media focusing on the husband and focusing on the loss of the power instead of focusing on the loss of the trust and loss of the family.
Love is work and courage. It's being willing to do the work when making a relationship work. And having the courage to look at yourself and your own imperfections, and having the courage to forgive.
Why do some people become people pleasers in order to get love?
Because they're fearing that they are not enough to be accepted by someone, so as long as they do something for someone, someone will say, well, gee whiz, I like what you're doing. And more often than not, that's a person who will read someone and see their weaknesses and say, I know what that person's weakness is. I'll do for them so they don't have to for themselves. So I become indispensable. The moment you become indispensable in someone's life, you've created a very unhealthy relationship. If you have someone who is manipulating you to get your love, it's never love that they're going to feel. You've got to start by understanding that love connects with love. Love will allow patience, love will allow understanding, love will allow compassion, but love should never subvert itself to a lower standard in order to accommodate another person's dysfunction.
So much of the time we are seeking love. We're seeking a partner to bring us love. We feel so empty inside ourselves of love. We think love is like a commodity and it lies out there in some other person. And if I go to the right store, I find that particular item to purchase. And we treat relationships that way. We think if we find the right partner who loves in the right way, then I'm going to have love in my life. Of course, all that does is make me feel more powerless. And then I get into the relationship, and anything that happens that's not totally loving on the part of the other person, then I feel deprived of love again. Because I've totally forgotten one major factor is that I am love itself. I'm part of that divine source. I'm not separate from love. I never could be separate from love. I would not exist if I was separate from love. But as Einstein put it, we live in the illusion that we are separate. And as long as we are in that illusion of separateness, we may seek somebody outside to complete us and to make us whole, or we seek somebody outside us to be the source of love, rather than remembering I'm in touch with love every time I'm extending it. That's a reminder to me that I'm love. Because if I'm giving love, how can I give something I don't have and be something I'm not? So it's a wonderful reminder that as I give it, then I really have it. It's like that oft-quoted prayer of St. Francis of Assisi when he said, it's in giving that we receive. I think that's why that prayer has been quoted by thousands of people through the centuries, because it recognizes a basic truth that who I am is love itself. And as I extend it, it's a reminder to me that I am love. And in so doing, then we can pick a partner who is going to be like a wonderful dancing partner with us in life, rather than somebody who's going to be the total source of love and happiness and fulfillment for me. Because the latter way is just a way of setting up failure and frustration and littleness and deprivation and then resentment and anger. I prefer the former, where if I can recognize I'm love myself, then anytime I need it, all I've got to do is just extend it towards somebody. And as I do that, I'm attracting it back. What better way is there than that?
Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll continue next week. I'll see you then.